Anyone who has been watching the debate over schools reopening after the Christmas break will have no doubt heard the expression, falling behind, a number of times in the last week. This phrase has been bothering me. Everyone is very concerned that the children should not fall behind in their studies. As a parent, I can of course appreciate the fact that children should have access to a good education, and I realize that school provides our kids with more than just qualifications, but I do find myself wanting to push back on the idea that meeting specific targets by specific times is the only way that children can succeed. As a specialist in workplace inclusion, I often challenge the idea that everything and everyone needs a set of tick-box targets to perform well. Contracted outcomes matter, and I am not prescribing a free pass for everyone to simply do as they wish. But it is important to sense-check our targets, make sure they are fit for purpose and haven't become arbitrary. Flexibility is always key in a crisis. Respond quickly, change your plans, refocus your resources. When dealt an unusual hand as we have been with this new strain of the virus and a need to once again lock down and stay home, it is sometimes best to completely disregard the timeline and targets you had set and instead create a fresh path that suits the new circumstances and the individual person. We should not look on an absence from school as automatically falling behind. There is valid education to be had in simply reading a book, watching a film, helping with household chores, and yes, even playing video games. This lower-pressure environment was found to improve mental health for younger teenagers. For example, in the first March lockdown, and anecdotally I have heard many stories about disabled pupils have less anxiety attacks when the pressure for attendance presenteeism was off. This will lead to new ideas, better learning and solid, well-resourced progress, albeit perhaps longer term. Life is not a race. Most neurominorities will tell you that standardized performance tracking makes us shudder. Many of us have experienced an early life that was full of failing to meet developmental milestones, largely because the list wasn't created with us in mind. While we were failing to meet targets for speech or behavior, for example, we may have also been taking a part in rebuilding things, or inventing detailed fictional characters. There was no tick box for this, so we did not realize that these were also important skills. There was no straight, predictable timeline with which our progress could be tracked, and yet we grew into adults capable of achieving great things regardless. The same is true for this generation of school pupils, and all our business plans. Remember, their whole year group and your competitors are dealing with the same crises. It will be different progress, but not necessarily worse in the long term.